This is episode number 61, entitled People Who Push Our Buttons. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack. I'm a certified life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I want you to know that no matter your season or circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life. And I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Seasons of Joy podcast. How is everyone doing today? I am doing so good. I just got back from a week and a half vacation with some of my family and friends to Hawaii. It was beautiful. We were on the island of Kauai, and it's one of our favorite places. We did this amazing hike on the Nepali coast. If you haven't heard of it, look it up and see some pictures. It's absolutely breathtaking. We backpacked in, camped overnight, a few nights, and then hiked back out, and then spent a week at a resort so we could recoup and recover. And it was beautiful. It was worth every blister that I have, especially now because they're starting to heal. But it was beautiful. And it always feels so good to just take a break and unplug and not think about things you have to get done or things happening in your life. You could just be present where you are. So it was very fun for that. And I broke my phone on that hike. So I've gone without a phone for a week and a half. So it has been it's been interesting. So I'm playing catch up today, but again, it's so nice to take a break, but it is nice to get back home, get into the routine, get in the groove of things again. So I'm so glad to be here, and I'm glad that you're here today as well. Before I get started, I just wanted to remind you again about my Seasons of Joy community Facebook group. I created this group as a place to participate in a monthly workshop and a monthly open coaching call. So I do 2 calls a month as part of this community, and it's to give you an idea of what coaching looks like. So I do a workshop on a topic. And so this month of May, the topic is the power of emotions. And that workshop is Tuesday, May 16th at 7 p.m. Mountain Daylight Savings Time. And if you're a part of the community, you can either watch the streaming video and participate via the comment section, or the Zoom link is found in that community page at the top of the page, and you can join via Zoom. So then you can participate via chat, or if there's time, I bring people on to coach them live if they would like to. But you can always participate via chat or the Facebook group streaming and in the comment section. So it's a great way to see what coaching is and what it would be like to work with me one-on-one in my Seasons of Creation program. So the link to join the Seasons of Joy community is found in the show notes of this episode, or any episode really. So today's episode, I'm so excited about. It's entitled People Who Push Our Buttons, right? I think when I say that, my guess is that you thought of someone, right? Someone came to mind that you believe pushes your buttons. This topic was submitted by one of my listeners, and they're looking for suggestions on how to show love to someone that pushes all of their buttons. I just love this question. I love this topic because, again, I believe that we all have someone that we think pushes our buttons, and it feels like they really know how to push our buttons, right? They know just the thing to say or the thing to do or not do, right? That can really get under our skin. So when I say when someone pushes our buttons, it means that they're doing or saying something that triggers a strong emotional reaction within us. Usually those emotions are irritation, frustration, and sometimes even anger. And I was thinking about this before I found coaching and what my life looked like at that time and how I felt this. I felt like my buttons were being pushed all the time. I thought back to when I was a young wife and a mother. I believed that my kids should do what I say, right? They should keep their rooms clean. They should be reverent at church. They should eat their dinner. They shouldn't whine. They shouldn't fight, right? I also believed that my husband shouldn't be told what I needed him to do, that he should just know. He should want to do the chores, the tasks, the dishes, right? When I wanted to do them. He should only watch a certain amount of TV. He shouldn't want sex more than I do. And if things weren't going like this, if they were doing things I didn't think they should, I felt like things were going wrong. I was desperately trying to control the things that I couldn't control because I was believing that my buttons were being pushed all of the time. And this pattern continued as my children became teenagers and young adults, right? There were buttons everywhere. Buttons showed up in all of my relationships too, with my parents, my siblings, my friends, my in-laws, right? And if we're not careful, our list of button pushers can actually get pretty long. If we start down that path of believing that our buttons are being pushed, right? Believing that our buttons are being pushed just happens to us and it's totally out of our control is like handing over the remote control of our well-being to another person, right? We're totally at the mercy of when they want to push a button or two of ours. And this is such a disempowering place to be. And I can see that now, right? As I look back to what I believed was causing me a problem, I was such a victim. I was disempowered. There is something that happens, right, between the words people say, the things they do, their behaviors, right, and our emotional response. And that thing in the middle is our thoughts. Our thoughts are the interpretation or what we're making things mean, right? Usually making things about us. And this interpretation, right, is made because we're viewing life through our unique lens, right? As human beings, we each have our own unique personal lens that we view life through. And this lens is made up of things like our past experiences, our values, our beliefs, the things we were taught, right? So many things factor into the creation of our lens. And we view what someone says or does through this lens, and then we have thoughts about it. We might have thoughts that include phrases such as these, such as they shouldn't have said ... or they shouldn't have done ... they should know better than to ... okay? Or if they loved me, they wouldn't ... or if they cared about me, they would ... right? We've all had thoughts similar to these. We just fill in the blank with what we wish they would or wouldn't do. But when we believe that someone should be different than they are, or that they should be doing something different than they are, we will most likely feel irritated, frustrated, or, like I said, angry. We are pushing our own buttons with the thoughts we think, because there's this underlying belief that if they would be or act differently, then we could be happy or things would be better. But when we believe this, we keep ourselves stuck in those feelings of irritation, disappointment, frustration, blame, or anger. So the comment that your sister-in-law makes, the choice of your adult child, the behavior of a friend, none of those things push your buttons. It's your belief that they should be different than they are. It's really as simple as that. As humans, we like to complicate things. We like to be validated. So we go and talk to other people who agree with us about the button pushing, right? Or we like to collect this evidence of our buttons being pushed to prove our thinking true. Now, I want you to understand that I don't think this is wrong or bad. We all do it. It's part of being human. And it's okay to think and feel however you want. But if you are doing this, right, you have a choice. You can choose to keep doing that as long as you like, or you can do something different, right? If you're tired of pushing your own buttons, you're ready for something different in your life, I want to share with you 3 things that will help you create wanted change and empower you to start taking responsibility of your own buttons so that you can show up with more love in your relationships with others and with yourself. So I want to be clear. When we say they push our buttons, this is a lie. This is a lie we tell ourselves. Nobody can push our buttons. We push our buttons by what we are thinking. So I call these 3 things the 3 A's. So hopefully this will help you remember these little tips that I'm going to share with you. So tip number 1 is acknowledge, right? It's important to acknowledge a few things in the beginning. Acknowledgement is the first step, if you will. You need to acknowledge that you have your own unique lens, that you are viewing the situation from, and that other people, you're viewing them also through this lens, right? So this helps you see that when we understand we have our own unique lens, this helps you see that other people might have a different perspective because of their lens that they are looking at life through, right? There's going to be different perspectives available to you if you will pause and consider them. So when we can recognize that other people may have varying opinions or viewpoints on a particular issue, this will help you move closer to love instead of judgment. Because when we think that there's only one way to look at it, right, that's going to cause us trouble. The second thing we need to acknowledge is that your thoughts and your feelings, right, you want to acknowledge them without judgment. You're not your thoughts. You're not your emotions. They do not define you. They give you information that you can learn from in order to become more of who you want to be. You do this by becoming the watcher of what you are making other people's words and actions mean about you. You watch your thoughts. You pay attention to what you're feeling. What can you learn from this? And that's when you get curious and start asking questions. So when you can acknowledge that you have thoughts and feelings and they're perfectly normal, they're perfectly fine, you can begin to get curious about them instead of trying to hide them or resist them, right? You want to ask yourself questions like, why am I thinking this? How could the opposite be true? Or what else could be true here? Or what can this tell me about what I need right now? Oftentimes, there's a need that we aren't meeting when we move into judgment, right? So we want to pay attention and acknowledge the thoughts and feelings that we have without judging them, and then get curious. Third, we need to acknowledge when you are mirroring other people, right? So if you pause and you step back, you will notice that there are situations where you are mirroring the very behaviors of the person that you believe is pushing your buttons. So, for example, Let's say you're in an argument with your teenager and they start talking back to you, right? They have an elevated tone. And you're thinking they are disrespecting me. And you begin to feel disrespected with this layer of anger, right? Because you don't want to feel disrespected. And you start listing off to them all the things they're doing wrong. And you start raising your tone and you may start yelling at them and you're getting angry. And if we pause right there and you're honest with yourself, you really aren't respecting them either, right? You are disconnecting yourself from them just like they have disconnected from you. So it's important to pay attention to when we see ourselves begin to mirror the behavior of the person we believe is pushing our buttons, right? And watch that and acknowledge that, right? If we want to do differently, we need to stop mirroring the behavior that is bothering us. And the fourth thing that you need to acknowledge is that the other person is a human being just like you. I heard someone say that if we added just like me at the end of our thought about another person, then we could gain some awareness and perspective. So, for example, my child is disrespectful, just like me. Or my husband is insensitive, just like me. My friend isn't considerate of my time, just like me. You get the idea, right? We're all disrespectful. Sometimes we're all insensitive sometimes, and we're all inconsiderate sometimes because we are humans. We don't always show up as our best. We want to, but we don't. That's part of being in this messy human experience, right? We don't always say the right things or react in the best way. And that's okay, right? If we understand that that's part of being human, we can actually step back and go, oh, I do it too, right? When we can view the other person as a human being just like us, it can help us show up with more compassion and grace, right? So those are the 4 ways that we need to acknowledge in our life and in our relationships to help us stop pushing our own buttons, right? So tip number 2 is accepting what is reality, the current reality. Now, this does not mean that you have to love what is, but you can let go of trying to control other people or trying to change the past, right? Because sometimes we argue with the past, which keeps us stuck in a negative emotional cycle as well, because we think it should have been different, right? We can view our relationship with our past just like any other relationship, right? When we believe our past should have been different, we're going to get stuck in that negative emotional cycle. But when we can accept it without necessarily loving it, right? It's just, this is what happened. So now what? Accepting doesn't mean we have to love it, but it allows us to move forward. We can let go of control and embrace what is, right? The sooner that you can come to terms with reality of a situation, rather than trying to change it or control it, the sooner you release yourself from the chains of resistance. And I think that's what they are. It's resistance adds chains. It keeps us stuck. It pulls us down. It keeps us fighting a fight we cannot win because we will lose the fight against reality. Resistance to your current reality keeps you from living with intention and blocks feelings of love or compassion. And when you aren't arguing against what is, you can begin showing up in your life as who you want to be on purpose. Acceptance is more powerful than you think. It really is. It creates a path to solutions, right? Because we aren't arguing against what is. It frees our brain to look for solutions. You may have an adult child that's choosing differently than you think they should. It could be with a school choice or alcohol or any issue that you think they shouldn't do, right? There's something you believe they shouldn't do. We have two choices. We can resist it, right? We can resist and fight against it. And with this resistance comes disconnection and maybe even anger that block me from feeling love for them, right? They can't feel our love. We do. And so when we resist who they are and what they're doing, we block ourselves from feeling the emotion of love. Or we can accept what is, right? This doesn't mean we have to love their choice. But if we can accept that this is what it is and it's their choice, I don't have to fight against it anymore. We can set down the fight. I don't have to disconnect or become angry. I get to choose not to do those things, right? I can actually get curious about why they might be making that choice, as well as having the emotional freedom to make requests and boundaries from a loving place instead of a disconnected, angry place, right? So we can get curious and try to understand where they're coming from and actually maybe get to a point where like, yeah, it kind of makes sense that that's what they're choosing right now. I don't love it, but that's what they're choosing right now. And for whatever reason, this is the path they're on. And all I can do is love them. And from that place, we also are, like I said, in this emotional freedom because we aren't fighting against the resistance. So then we can actually make requests if we want to, or set a boundary if we want to. We have a clearer mind to make the decisions that are for our best good, right? And that show love for everyone in the story, right? So I can lovingly set a boundary or make a request of another person, right? But it's all done out of love instead of anger and resistance. So here's another example. Let's say you're at a family party and you have a family member that says something you don't like, something that you believe is pushing your buttons, right? And you can't believe they said it. You think they shouldn't have said it and you feel frustrated. And then you avoid that family member. You've kind of disengaged from the party overall because you're so upset by it. And you replay this comment in your mind over and over and over. And you think about other comments that they've said in the past, right? And you just spin in them in your brain, right? You talk about this family member to other family members that maybe feel the same way, or you're just venting, right? And you're talking about it and you're trying to prove or validate your point that they are wrong, right? And in the end, because you think they should be different than they are, you aren't showing up as the person who you want to be. However, let's change how you think about what is said. Instead of believing they shouldn't have said what they said and that they should be different than they are, you find something to believe that is just as true. And it would be great, I agree, if they didn't say the thing, right? We would all love them not to say that thing, and that's okay. And we don't like it, and it's okay. But resisting that it was said won't make it that it was not said at all, right? Our resistance doesn't change the fact that it was said. It could be as simple as, this is the thought, could be as simple as, yep, they say stuff like this sometimes, right? They say stuff like this sometimes. And the truth is that the words they say aren't good or bad. They really aren't. It feels like they are. I get that, right? But they don't hurt us or make us feel anything until we give them meaning, until we have a thought about them. If we have this thought now that we've shifted to, yep, they say stuff like that sometimes, we may even get to a point where we might have compassion for the other person might be a stretch, but not always, right? That you could have compassion because you realize that their comment actually says more about them than you. It actually reveals something that they may be going through that you don't really understand. So it makes sense they might say that thing because of what they're going through, right? It's possible that you could get to feel some compassion. It's possible. You don't really give their comment a second thought if you believe, yep, they say this sometimes. You wouldn't talk about it with other family members because you're not giving it a second thought. You stay engaged at the party and you show up as the person you want to be. So see the difference. When we accept, we give ourselves the freedom to be who we want to be. Acceptance frees us to be our best self. It's a gift to ourselves. Sometimes we think that we're giving someone a free pass when we accept something. And again, it doesn't mean we just roll over and resign. It's just we get to a place where it's like, yep, this is what it is. Now, how do I want to move forward? So acceptance frees you from needing to change someone else and focus on who you want to be. Okay, so that is tip number 2. Tip number 3 is articulate. Many times we do not articulate to the people in our life what is important to us, what we value, or what we would like them to do, even as simple as that, right? We just assume that they should know or that they would already know. And if they loved us, they would know what we value and is important to us, right? I don't know about you, but that is something that has occurred in my life often. If they loved me, if my husband loved me enough, why do I have to ask this again? He should just know. And it sounds great that they should know, but we're just poisoning ourselves. We're poisoning ourselves with a thought like that. And assumptions can create misunderstandings and miscommunication. Sometimes we don't articulate what we want because we're trying to manage other people's emotions. We don't want them to feel mad or we don't want them to feel sad. This is people pleasing and it's impossible. Sooner or later, we just can't do it anymore. And it's exhausting, right? And this can cause us to feel resentful, right? We can try as hard as we can to manipulate other people's emotions, but sooner or later, we wear down and we begin to feel resentful. What would it be like if you could honestly articulate to your loved ones your desires, your wishes, and your wants? Honestly, right? What if you could articulate your requests of others from a place of love instead of manipulation? Let's say your adult daughter, who's married and has kids, has asked you to babysit often, right? She asks you quite a bit to babysit your grandkids, right? You feel frustrated because you can't believe that she asks you so much. You believe that she shouldn't be asking you so much, right? But you've never told her, you've never given her a request or a boundary about how much you can tend or that you're willing to tend. You just are doing it to appease her, right? You think she should know that it's too much, but you don't want her to feel bad. So you keep saying yes, and you get more and more frustrated and resentful towards her, right? You're creating more and more disconnect in your relationship with your daughter. But there's a choice here. There is another choice. What if instead of trying to manipulate your daughter's emotions, you are honest with yourself and her? Getting curious by asking yourself questions, right? That's where we get information to move forward. Curiosity. Curiosity is such a powerful tool. You want to ask yourself questions first, because if we don't know what we want, how can we tell it to another person, right? How can we articulate what we want to someone else if we don't know what we want? So you want to ask yourself questions. Do you even want to babysit? And if you do, how much do you want to be available to tend your grandchildren? Do you want to babysit? If you do, how much? right? What does it look like in the number of days or hours per week? Get specific, right? Get really clear what you want with yourself first, right? Because so often we get frustrated that we don't take the time to find the solution, a way to feel better, a way to show up as you want. Because my guess is you would want to babysit your grandchildren. I don't know, maybe never. And that's not wrong either. But for me, I do want to tend my grandchildren. I love them. But I also want to have the opportunity to explore my interests now that I am at a point where I am an empty nester. So, what does it look like specifically in days and hours per week? And get clear with yourself first. Then tell the whole truth. The whole truth could be that you have other interests and that you're wanting to pursue those in your life. Or you like your free time. You just like to have nothing to do. It could be that too, right? And you love your daughter and your grandchildren, right? So many times we think it's either or. Oh, I've got to babysit all the time, or that means I don't love my grandchildren. If I really love them, I have to do this. No, we can want to do something else and love them. It's not mutually exclusive. You want to help her and spend time with your grandchildren, and you only want to be available to tend a certain amount of times each week. You get to decide. You are the decider. So, what does it look like? And then be honest with yourself. That is the whole truth. Yes, you want to help tend, you want to spend time with them, but there's a certain amount of time that you are willing to give, right? You get to decide what that is. Then you get to say no when it doesn't work for you, and yes when it does. Isn't that easy? You get to say no and yes. You may decide to tend a little more one week, but it's because it's what you want to do. You chose to do it on purpose. You assessed what was happening. You decided, yep, I want to do this, not to appease my daughter's emotions, not because I have to, but because I want to. You are choosing to do it on purpose because that's who you want to be, not because you're trying to manage her emotions. Now, articulating what you want honestly with yourself may be all that is required. Doesn't mean you have to have a conversation with your daughter. It could be as simple as, okay, Jill, I'm going to say yes when I can and say no when I can't. And just, it's okay. It's okay that I say no sometimes. It really is okay. And I am going to do it purposely and intentionally, show up the best I can when I can, and then honor my other interests as well, right? But also I get to choose if I want to do it more one week than another, but understanding that it's because of me. And so it's as simple as just making those decisions within you. But it may require you have a conversation. You get to decide that. But if you had an honest conversation with your daughter, it may look like this. Daughter, I love you so much. I love when I get to spend time with the grandchildren, and I want to help you whenever I can. But I'm also really enjoying my spare time to explore some of my other interests. And so in order to do both of these things, I'm going to be available to tend for you one day a week. And I'm so excited to spend time with my grandchild that day. That's the honest thing is, yes, you want to, but you're also taking time to explore your interests. That's good. It's honest. And you can't control how daughter takes that. She may be sad, and you can have compassion for that, but it doesn't mean you have to manage her sad, right? It could be as simple as, I know that this is hard. I've done it a lot, and I haven't been fair to you. I haven't been honest with you to tell you that I have these other interests that I want to spend time for. So I love you so much, and I hope you can understand. And I'm really looking forward to tending once a week for you, right? That's the whole truth. So again, you get to decide how much time you're willing to tend from a place of love instead of resentment, right? So those are the 3 A's to stop pushing your own buttons, right? Again, we have thoughts that push our buttons. Other people do not push our buttons. We need to acknowledge that other people have perspectives, that you have your own thoughts and emotions that are totally okay. You don't need to judge them, and that we are all human beings, right? We need to acknowledge those things. We also need to drop the resistance of what is and lean into accepting what is so that you can create a path to peace and finding solutions. And you need to honestly articulate your wants and your desires to yourself and others. The more we can do those 3 things, the less we will feel like our buttons are being pushed. Practicing these things will help you be more of who you want to be and strengthen the relationship that you have with yourself and with those you love. If you're ready to take these concepts and apply them to your specific circumstances, I would love to be your one-on-one coach. Just click the link in my show notes to schedule a free discovery call with me, and let's have a chat. Thank you for being here. I hope you have a wonderful and joyful week. See you next time. Thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear, I would love it if you would share it with your friends and family and leave me a rating and review. If you'd like to learn more about what life coaching is, please schedule a free discovery call with me where we can work together through something that's causing you a problem. Just go to my website, seasons-coaching.com, and you can also find information about my Seasons of Joy one-on-one coaching program and my Seasons of Joy community. Have a joyful week, and I'll see you next time.